they're pretty gentle. Hardy must have been taking the pictures here. Hardy took most of the pictures actually with that first little 8mm camera. Granddad Morris raised bulls like that for about 35 years. And I grew up in the business, but I never did really care about it. It was okay, but I wasn't really sold on it 100%. I'd leave home, go away for a while.
How old were they there?
I think there were 2 about this time, and they had a big pile of hay there to throw over the fence to feed the bulls, and Jim is showing how to use a pitchfork. There's Grandma Morris. Now this jumps to Battleground Washington, doesn't it? Yeah. There's Judy. Oh, and there's John.
Saddle on that thing.
John, isn't that you? Yeah, that's John pulling the calf. They got a saddle on the calf, and John's on a scooter that he could really make that thing run. And then they all learned to ride on that calf. What was the name of your dog, Jim? Do you remember? Pepper? Yeah.
What's the cow's name?
Pinky Melvin.
Oh yeah, the calf was that Pinky Melvin?
Yeah, Pinky Melvin.
Whatever happened to Pinky Melvin?
There goes Judy leading the calf. Hang on, Jude.
Run away.
Yeah, they had a lot of fun with that calf.
Look at that.
That little scooter would turn around real short, and John would just spin it around. He just finally wore the tires clear off of it.
I still have it though.
He was about 3 at that time, 4, 3 probably, huh, John?
I don't know.
And that was our mailbox across the street. There wasn't as much traffic in those days, and you could cross the street easily. There's Larry Kness. He came up. That was his son. What was his name, Jim?
Kevin.
Kevin. Jim had a tote goat. That thing called it a tote goat, and it had a little Briggs and Stratton motor on it. Larry would pull the kids around the yard. That was the front yard between what is now Mike's house and the highway. There weren't so many trees out there then. That little tree in the middle was just a small tree at that time. Larry and Phyllis were maybe living in Boise or Anchorage at that time. I can't remember. Maybe even San Diego. And they'd come up for a week or 2 every summer. And there's Kevin, Jim and Jude and John, and Kevin and Michael. The little one is Michael. I guess we got more saucer writing. Well, that must be Kevin pulling his brother. No, is that John on there?
No, I think that's Kevin and Mike.
Kevin and Michael. Okay. Let's see. We went camping together up by Swift Reservoir. And we had a little motorboat, and there was that old Chevrolet with a back-end motor. Well, wait a minute, I'm not sure that was Swift Reservoir. That might have been our trip to Canada. We drove that old van, didn't we, Jim?
Yeah, we drove it to Canada.
That's the van we drove all over Canada.
Someone had a map out.
I'll bet that was one of the campgrounds in Canada.
See that map there? Trying to figure out where you're going.
Yeah, when there are bears around, we'd all get in the van to sleep, but if there are no bears around, why, the kids would sleep outdoors. There's Artie in a hammock. Yeah, that must be Canada. We went to Banff and mostly BC, but we were over in toward Calgary for a while. Went up to through the Peace River country. It looks like the Banff area, I'm not sure. Well, these might be pictures taken out of the windshield of the car. Yeah, there's a big lodge at
Looks like Canada.
Banff, is it?
Or it will be.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's its map.
Okay. Jim, is this a trip that you kids were feeding the bears out the window?
I don't remember. I don't remember the bears in Banff. I remember Yellowstone. Well, there's the Continental Divide.
Jim, you should have set up here by him so he,
Yeah, I think his voice will pick up on my
you think it will?
speaker, I think. Now we're back at the beach. John, a little bit older here.
Guy's bearskin coat.
I like that hat, Jim.
There's Jim and there's John, Jude. And there's Artie.
No, that's,
No, that's Judy and John. And Jim in the gum boots.
Bigger than he was.
yeah, these sizes bigger.
The first time we took John to the beach, we talked about the tide coming in, and he got scared to death, and he looked at the beach and he ran and jumped in his mother's arms and started crying. She thought something was going to come in and get him, get all of us. But he got over that, and he really loved the beach. Artie was usually out jumping waves like that when she was there, but she was taking pictures here. But she'd go down there in the middle of the winter, December and January, and wade out in there up to her knees in that surf. She just loved that beach.
Yeah. Is that biking upstairs in your garage? I think that'll do bucks up there.
Let's see, that's camping in a tent.
Oh, it's light there.
That might be a little lake on the Canadian side north of Grand Coulee. Lake Osoyoos, I think it was. Well, kids had a rubber boat. I'm pretty sure that's what it is. Yeah, we just crossed the Canadian line, blew up the boat, and the kids got in there and paddled around. It was nice, warm, real warm water in that lake. That was just.
Still remember what that tent smells like.
Yeah, Lake Lahatch. That's up, it's up toward Prince George somewhere. We camped there for the night. They told us there were bears in the area, so be sure and lock up all your food. Now we're in snow. Where could that be?
Looks like Canada with the trees
That
as
might
small
be.
as they are, but
Oh, that's Mount Hood, isn't it?
Yeah, government camp.
hmm.
Yeah, I think that's Mount Hood. That was up on Mount Hood. That's Judy and John, I think, on skis.
I think it's Jim.
Maybe Jim. Oh,
Yeah, it was Jim.
Recognize the technique?
that's Judy, I think. Oh, down she goes. I was probably taking these pictures. I was not a good cameraman. Sometimes I'd shoot the sky for 5 minutes at a time. Shoot the. There we go. Sometimes I'd go right into the ground and shoot the ground. Yeah, there's a lot of blanks in some of these films. Can't.
Some cats.
I think that's Canada again.
Pine pass or something like that.
I think that's up around Peace River.
That's where Pat's family that we visit up north lives, close to Peace River.
Yeah, there's the beginning of the Alaska Highway. And we went in there to camp for the night, and it was in about the 4th of July, and it didn't get dark and didn't get dark and didn't get dark, so we just stayed outdoors and played frisbee, and about 11 o'clock it started getting dark enough to go to bed. I'd gone to college with an old friend that became a missionary to the Indians, and he was at an old trapping outpost Hudson's Bay had called Fort Ware, W-A-R-E, and we kind of, the nearest automobile road in there was about 100 miles from Fort Ware, and he had to go in there by boat up a big river. So we never did get in there to see him at that time. And then when he moved out of there, he went down near Vanderhoof and Prince George. We spent part of the summer of 1974 with him. John went with Hardy and I up there for about 6 weeks. And spent the summer on the Indian reservation where he was a missionary.
I think it was Prince George when we left you on the plane.
It's what, Delora?
I think it was at Prince George when we left you on, when we got on the plane and left you at the trip we took.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, Dolores is here with us as we watch these movies, and she reminded me that we took a trip up there, and do you remember what year it was, Dolores?
Really, I don't for sure.
It was soon after your son George was killed.
Sometime in the early 70s.
Early 70s, yeah. I was thinking 74, but I might be wrong.
And that may be right, too.
And we traveled with Pat and Dolores across western Canada. and we stopped to see our friend Dave. He lived at Stewart Lake, which is off the main road about 100 miles west of Prince George. Oh, this is back at Battleground again, and the kids had a zip line. I think that might be. Is that Michael Kness or Kevin Kness?
That's Kevin.
Oh, boy.
They're in the ditch by the driveway. They'd hang on to that zip line and go for a ride.
That was in the front yard, George?
That was in the front yard at
That's Jim on.
7503 219th Street.
Got 1 box 42. Oh, there, you got the boots.
Jim got his boots on. Is that Ron Durkee? And their Volkswagen Ron Durkee, yeah. There's Jude. They call her, when she got in high school, they called her Monkey Morris because she was so jumping around on the monkey bars. Were they shooting a BB gun there? Well, Jim and John had this little tractor. They had two old garden tractors hooked together, and made a 4-wheel drive out of it, put chains on it. Had 2 little Briggs and Stratton motors on there.
Oh,
Come on, John, get in there.
Only worked because John pushed. Yeah.
Yeah, Jim could go right across those deep ditches and through the mud holes. Hardly ever got stuck. Looked like he's about stuck there.
golly. Ah,
Yeah.
what fun.
That's a pony, and I can't remember which one was that.
That was Rusty.
What was his name?
Rusty.
Rusty? And we had
Good.
that's was that one of the
That's Kevin.
Kevin Kness driving the scooter. Oh, you know this guy, Dolores. Tell us who this is. For splitting wood. Who's that guy splitting wood?
I didn't see him.
You watch now.
Looks like Pat, but,
It is.
yeah.
Can you speak up and say, this is Dolores Mason talking. Who's doing the splitting there, Dolores?
It's Pat Mason, my husband.
Yeah. Yeah, we had a splitter on the back of the tractor, and Pat helped us split wood that summer. I don't remember where that swing was at. Do you, Jim?
I think it was in Granby at the log house.
Yeah, I guess so. That was at Granby at the log house. Yeah. That had to be, we left there in 1964. Well, that might have been 63 or 64. Those cattle in the background were on the ranch property. And John used to like to lay down on his tummy under the fence and look at those cows and bulls.
Yeah, they scared him.
Judy's scaring him there. Most everything here was on the old ranch at Granby. Everything you can see there.
So that's where he was.
Well, now we're I guess we're back at Granby again here in this picture.
Is that where you were splitting the wood, was in Granby?
Well, it must have been. I thought it was out here. We had a splitter at both places. Yeah, that's I think that's Granby. I'm not sure.
Is that the wagon you rescued me in? Down Morse?
John's going to dump them out.
I think that is the wagon we rescued you.
What, Jim?
Oh, that wagon we rescued John from Grandma Morris to keep him from getting spanked.
Oh, that's right.
For squirting water in her house.
Yeah, that's right. That's about the same time that happened. Grandma Morris opened the door and John squirted water with a hose in there, and she was going to spank him. Jim and Jude grabbed him and ran with him, and she wouldn't let Grandma Morris get him. There she is pulling the kids when the first year that was when they were just a few months old, pulling them through the snow on a sled in a box.
Cute little thing.
It must have been about a year.
They were born the 20th of October.
This must have been the following year.
There was already on a rope behind the car. We had that old 52 Ford. We'd go out in the hay fields and put a rope behind the car and pull each other. You could get up a pretty good speed on that flat ground if you'd swing wide, kind of like on the water, about the same thing. You could actually pass ahead of the car if you really worked at it. That's Granby in the background.
Like going fast there.
Now we got some more blanks, it looks like. I think that is in the Granby main house. I think. Well, this is a steamboat. I was doing my student teaching in steamboat in 1958. would it have been? Let's see. Must have been, Jim and Jude were not very big, of course, you can see there. And Artie would stay with them at the motel. We lived in a motel room for 2 months. And so Artie would bundle them up and take them downtown on the sled and pull them around town, go to the library, and give them a ride down a little hill. They'd go all over town. The snow was pretty deep in Steamboat sometimes. There was a motel we stayed at, and that was our truck and our car. Is that Doris? They're my uncle's wife? Yeah, that's my uncle.
Doris.
That's at my Uncle Carl's place up 15 miles north of Kremling. And they had an old Model T, and the tree grew up through the middle of the old Model T car that they used to own. So they were just sitting in the car getting their picture taken. Later on, somebody bought that old Model T and got it to running again. And I think that's one of Carl's uncles from Switzerland getting out of there. Arnold Richard was his name. He was uncle, and Uncle Carl was my uncle, my wife, my mother's brother. That's the old Richard home where my mother was born. And there's Arnold holding Judy, and I was holding Jim on the balcony. That was built in the about 1890, I think. And they tore it down in 1948, along in there somewhere. No, it was after that, 1958. Well, there's Judy riding the pony. Carl and Doris really loved those two little kids. They didn't have any children of their own, and they loved Jimmy and Judy. We had a rodeo grounds on the ranch, and we'd use the big rodeo grounds for a holding pen when we'd brand the cattle. And that's a fence post right in front of the camera there. There's branding going on behind that fence post. We won't see it for a while. We're trying to run the cows in the chute. One of them wouldn't go in, so I had to rope him. There's a brown horse. My dad bought it down at the Steamboat. My dad was going to chase the cow, and I was dragging the calf because we couldn't get the cow and the calf to go in the branding pen. Most of them would go in, but once in a while you get a stubborn one. My dad had a pretty good cutting horse. That's our neighbor Johnny Murphy helping brand the calves. They'd put them in a little cradle and tip them over and hold them. That's my English relatives from England. They came to visit in the must have been the winter of 58, winter 58 maybe.
Jim.
And that was their boy from England, and they'd come to Canada to visit relatives, and then they came on down here. And their last name was Pete, I think, P-E-E-T. And I can't remember just how they were related. I think they were my dad's sister's daughter. I think that's my dad's sister's daughter there. And this English couple later got a divorce, and we lost track of them. That old black horse was just one of the old work horses used to pull a sled and pull hay around to feed the cows. Her baby calf with the little Pete boy petting the calf. That cow was not a registered cow. She was just an old grade cow that happened to be in the corral. Here they are out with the bulls. I think we were living in Fort Collins that winter, and we drove up to see our English relatives who were visiting the ranch. That was a little girl, a little Pete girl, and a little boy holding Jim, I guess. And Granddad and Grandma Morris and the Petes and Artie, and Jim and Jude. That's some of the old sheds, and there was a kind of a coal wood storage shed in the background. Or Judy helping her granddad do something. I think this was soon after they learned to walk. And we were living in Fort Collins. I was going to my 5th year of college, and they learned to walk that winter. So this must have been late winter that year, and they were walking pretty good. That's my Uncle Carl, my mother's brother. I think this was at the Richard home in the new house they built up on the Muddy Creek, 15 miles north of Kremling. There was Dora smoking a cigarette. She died at an early age from smoking too much, I think. I don't know what he's doing there. Got something.
Like he had a microphone.
So it looked like he was performing.
And Grandma Leah. or Doris. Doris was 25 years younger than Carl. He didn't get married till he was real old. But they they were a very happy couple. They never did have any children. They sure loved Jimmy and Judy. Granddad Morris, Jim. Grandma always had a pet cat or two around for the kids to play with.
Sunbathers, George?
I think,
Naked kids.
let's see. I don't know.
W. Mays.
Is that Artie's good friend, Jerry Thomas, when they came to visit us? I think it might have. No? I'm not sure. Artie had a real good friend in Fort Collins named Jerry Thomas. And they, when Jim and Jude were born as twins, why, it was hard to take care of them because they wouldn't eat enough, and we had to stay up with them most of the night. So Jerry came up and stayed a couple of weeks with Artie to help her feed the babies at night. And I think,
Is that Larry and Lori?
I believe it is. I believe that's May's kids, Larry and Lori, Walden, and Jim and Jude. Yeah, yeah, there's already, we built that spin around gate and they just love to swing on that. Lori was a little bit older. That was the first year at the ranch.
What were those seats supposed to hang on?
Those are car seats.
What were those seats supposed to hang on?
I don't, I guess they were car seats.
Those are car seats.
Yeah,
They just hung on the back of its
Those are car
car?
seats.
yeah, they just hooked over the back of the seat, did they? Yeah,
Seat?
that's what they were.
Or the back of the back? Wow.
Yeah.
They make cool little swings.
Safety seats. Someone doesn't like car seats.
That must have been their first spring. Looks like the grass is starting to get green, and Artie took them out on a blanket. We were living in the hired man's house that year, and the snow went off there about April, and then they had bare ground. In May, we'd have a little grass for them to play on. But we had pretty long winters and short summers up there. Jim chewing on a dandelion. Judy got, her Grandma Morris got them on a wagon. Yeah, Mom and little Jude. Jim was a pretty good eater. I think that's May's daughter, Lori, I think. Yeah. There's May's husband, Bill, and Granddad Morris and his black horse. An old pump jack, we put a little motor on it, and it'd go up and down and give the kids a ride. I think we had a kind of little saddle thing on there. They really liked to ride that thing. Before the snow went off, I already had to wash the diapers and carry them out on a clothesline. The snow was really deep. So we decided to take the diapers up to the laundry after that. That's my sister May and her daughter Loy. That's Bill and Lori and Larry. They lived up in Wyoming at that time. Granddad Morris had a calf tied in the back of his Jeep pickup. Jim's looking him over. Now that might be Artie's friend, Jerry Thomas from Boulder. I think it is. That was on the stairway at Grandma Morris's house. Kids like to try to climb them stairs. See, I think that's in Grandma Morris's front yard there. Oh, that's their first birthday. They had a train cake on their first birthday. And Grandma Morris always had a train cake for their birthday. They weren't walking yet then. They didn't, I think that was October, and they didn't walk till about February. We were in college that year, and we just came up for their birthday. I don't know what they're playing with there, but they seem to enjoy it. Grandma always had something for them to play with. They're pretty happy little kids there, look like.
I think you still have some up.
There's Clifford Mason, Pat Mason's dad. He used to come out almost every summer and help us harvest the hay crop. And he liked to come out there where it was cooler than Oklahoma was. We usually didn't mow hay like that with a tractor on a horse mower, but he had a horse mower, which is usually pulled by horses. He hooked a tractor onto it and made it work pretty good. Clifford was good with machinery, and he was always helping keeping the machinery repaired. There's a tractor. Oh, there's a boy from Nebraska that used to come out, Norman Coder from Elwood, Nebraska, came out to help in the hay fields. There's Clifford holding Judy and Leah. There's Norman Coder with Jim. And there's Grandma and Grandma with their two little grandkids. They really loved those kids. Not too many years before this, Granddad had been a heavy drinker. And he got into AA and got sobered up, and then he was, after the kids were born, he just loved those kids. That's my dad on the sorrel horse. I'm on the brown horse. There's Clifford. There's Norman Coder. And yeah, that's some of the laundry on the clothesline. Already had a lot of laundry to do.
Oh, there's the.
Well, there we go.
George and Kirk.
These,
That's
yeah, these are Dolores's boys here. George and Kirk. And
Isn't that in Oklahoma?
wait a minute. Yeah, do you know who this is, Dolores?
Yeah, that's your children and ours, and it's at
Well, this is down at your house
at the
in
yeah.
Oklahoma. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah, this was. Go ahead, Dolores, if you see anything.
Well, that's just one of the dogs there that Pat had. It was a bird dog, but the kids wrestled it like it was someone to wrestle. But and they loved these babies. They just George just cried when they left. He just couldn't hardly stand to see Jim leave when they had to go home.
There's George with his pet duck.
I ran over that duck, I'm sorry to say.
Get him, George.
Oh.
Was that old Pluto the dog?
Yeah, he got sandburrs in his feet.
Oh, huh. There's Pat.
Mhm. What's Kirk trying to do there? Was that the time we blacked you up and went down to tell Pat you wanted a job? Or was this another time? Was this Thanksgiving? I can't remember.
I think this was Thanksgiving of when the kids were just about 13 months old.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. Yeah, Grandma Morris and Artie and I took the kids down there.
That was me trying to get Jim, wasn't it? Sit still. Grandma Morse is gonna. She's giving a push. Isn't that the little tractor you gave the boys?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they rode that little tractor for miles and miles.
I sure did.
Do you recognize those people, Doris?
Well, I certainly
Oh.
couldn't have named all of them there. I was one of them, but
Now we're back at the ski hill at Steamboat Springs. that winter, let's see, that would have been the winter after we were at Mason's in Thanksgiving time. This is the old hill at Steamboat. That was the only hill they had a ski jump on at Steamboat. I think at one time they held a world's record jump there for distance, but of course nowadays wouldn't be very far. But we lived right across the river from that ski hill, and we could take the kids over there anytime we wanted to and ride up on a ski lift and slide down the hill. That was probably outside the motel at Steamboat. You can see a few people going up the ski toe, and that's the big jump hill. I think the record was 220 feet or something at that time. There comes a guy off the jump. Over on the left is the kids' jump. They'd go about 60 or 80 feet off of that jump. I took Jimmy and Judy up there. They had little toy skis, and I'd go up a little ways on the hill and then hold them between my legs, and they'd slide on their skis, go on down the hill. That's Granddad Morris with his team out in the snow, and I don't know if he's got the kids with him or not. I think he does. Yeah, I think this is the first year after we built the house at Granby. 62. And Jim and Judy each had skis. John was just a little guy. And Jim preferred snowshoes. And he could go anywhere with those snowshoes. And Judy had skis. And John would try to follow him in that deep snow and he'd get stuck. There goes Judy. Yeah, I built that house in the summer of '62, and we started living in it in September of that year, and it didn't have a ceiling in it, and it was kind of cold downstairs for a while until we got the ceiling in. But Jim and Judy would come home from school, and every night they'd get on their snowshoes. Is this back?
This is back in Oklahoma.
Oh, who's that, Laura?
Oh my goodness, can't say his name now.
Oh, is that Rusty pony?
Yeah, Rusty. That's Rusty. The first one was Ginger, and I started to say Ginger. That wasn't right. So. It was Pat and George. Well, that's Jim, isn't it?
Well, that's Jim
That's
on the
Jim.
pony there,
Yeah.
yeah.
There's a rattlesnake in that barn there one time. Clifford wanted some tools out of the toolbox. Was a dresser of drawers, and it was turned over, so I had to go in to get the tools for him. He couldn't lift it. And when I stepped in there, I heard the snake rattle, and it was a rattlesnake, and I said, "Granddad, that's a rattlesnake." "Oh, no, it's not." But it was, and he killed it. And I had the rattlers for a long time.
Oh my, he was under right that
He
close.
wasn't under it, he
Oh.
was there by it.
Huh.
And I jumped over him and was caught inside the barn.
Oh
So
my.
Granddad had to kill the rattlesnake. That's George.
You could really ride that little horse.
Yeah. Where's this, George?
I think this is when we came out to Battleground, Washington to visit Artie's folks
Okay.
the first summer when they were little tiny kids. We flew out on a propeller airplane from Denver. Took all day.
Oh,
And there's Granddad Rogers with Judy. Yeah, that was her first summer. And that's Dorothy's car in front of her, in front of the Rogers house. There's Artie and her sister Dorothy and Jim. Dorothy. There's Hob and his two grandsons, or grandkids, Jim and Jude. There's Kevin Kniss. And Knisses were living in Portland at that time. When we came out to visit, we went over to their house in Portland, and that was a sidewalk in front of their house. And Kevin was a little bit older than Jim and Jude, so he was walking okay. There's Larry and Phyllis and Kevin. He had just started with the IBM company at that time. And that's out in the front yard at the Rogers house. And Dorothy. Let's see, I don't That must be a family picnic there. Yeah, I think that was what they call the Rogers reunion. There were 5 Rogers boys, and the artist's dad was the one in the center there, and then he had 4 brothers and 2 sisters. This is at Yampa when I was teaching vocational agriculture, and we built that thing to crawl across the snow. One of the ranch guys there loaned us his tractor, and we put those treads on it so it would go through the deep snow. So I took the high school boys on a cross-country trip, and we put ropes behind that thing, and the kids wore skis, and we went about 8 or 10 miles out across country. These sheep belonged to one of the high school boys' FFA project. Sears Roebuck at that time would give the kids sheep if they would take care of them. Then after 3 years, they had to give back some of the sheep. That's the high school boys on that trip.
Did they enjoy that, George?
What's that?
Did they enjoy that?
Oh
trip?
yeah, that was a fun trip. Yeah, that was a very nice bunch of kids.
Good.
Yampa was a very nice school. The kids were very well behaved. And that boy driving the tractor became a professor of mathematics at the Colorado State University. Here's Jim at Yampa. He had a little tractor with a blade on it. That was our back door. It must have been about 1961, I think. I think we left Yampa in 61. I think that might have been the last year we were there. We were only there 2 years. Then we went from there to Grand Lake. I taught school in Grand Lake 1 year. Then on down to Hot Sulphur the next year.
Jude's out without a coat.
That's Judy without a coat. Downtown Yampa, the main business district. That was in our backyard at Yampa. And who is... I don't know who the... might be... I don't know who those other 2 kids are. They had some neighbor kids that they played with. Probably that's who it was. John wasn't born yet then. That might be the Thomas kids. I think that was Gene and Jerry Thomas's kids. Ronnie and their older girl. They came to see us a couple times at Yampa. I had to take the high school boys to the state fair at Pueblo with some cattle and judging contests. And so Jerry Thomas came up to spend the time
There's
there.
Pat, George.
That was George.
Judy.
Okay.
Is that?
There's. Yeah, this was at Yampa at the first house we lived in. And Pat and Loris came to see us, and we had real bad water in the town, and we were used to it, but they really got sick.
I did.
The kids had, I don't think the kids got sick very bad,
No.
but they had a lot of fun. Yeah, that's George.
That's Kurt.
Well, that's Kurt, yeah.
There's George.
There's George.
And
There's
that's
Dolores
me
and
wandering
Pat.
on my
Yeah,
shorts.
you were younger then, Dolores.
Well, way younger. Looks like we're getting ready to leave. I was going back to the hot country.
That was our front yard. They had a big mud puddle to play in. I think that was Dorothy's Volkswagen. Artie's two sisters, Dorothy and Phyllis, came out to see us at Yampa and brought the Kevin and Michael. We're back at the Granby Ranch again. I think this was Easter time. One of the first, yeah, that was our first Easter, I think. They hid some eggs. Jim's going to eat his. Yeah, that was Easter time. The snow was still deep up there. There's Artie and Jim and